This is GARIS, Masculist, MGTOW flyers, that is 2 3-page essays on the themes of Masculism and MGTOW, written by and read aloud by Prof. Dr. Hugo de GARIS. This is flyer number 205, entitled Masculist Power. Flyer itself. Masculist Power. Dear Aaron, or Aaron, it's Aaron. I don't remember who he was, but this is a letter to him. Listening to you, I have the feeling that you might benefit from being exposed to masculist ideas that will give your agenda greater power. So I give a brief synopsis of the main masculist ideas and then explain why they have such potency. I need to start with some masculist terms. Masculist equals men's liber. Fluffy equals traditional woman who expects to parasite off a man's money. FIP equals financially independent person, what the masculists want all women to be. Robot male equals traditional male who expects to be parasited upon by a fluffy wife, for example, as is still the case in Korea and Japan. Fluffy feminist equals feminist who is ignorant of masculist ideas, so still has traditional attitudes towards men, seeing them as checkbooks and exploitable. Masculists are strongly ideological, political and moralistic. They put enormous moral pressure on fluffies to become FIPs. If you want to have a man, have a career. Fluffies can rot on the shelf. Masculists tell robot males, rather a FIP than a fluffy. A fluffy will parasite on you before the divorce and after the divorce. Masculists get on the media and push their ideology to change social attitudes and raise awareness of men's issues. For example, the financial massacring of men in the divorce courts, the lack of a legislated paternity rejection right, etc. They harangue fluffy feminists. They lobby male feminist gender politicians. They perform direct actions against fluffy feminist divorce court judges and lawyers. They get on the media and preach masculist ideas so that feminists and fluffies and robot males have their masculist consciousness raised. Masculists particularly push the idea that a woman who is not a career-competent FIP will simply not get a man. And since 99.5% of women are heterosexual, they are dependent on men to be loved, to be sexed, and to be given kids. In Japan, a third of young herbivore men under 30 refuse to have relationships with young women, so a corresponding third of young women, the dry fish ladies, are now utterly miserable because they have no man, no love, no sex, and especially no babies. These young men look at their fathers who worked 11-hour days, 3-hour commute times, who got home so late they orphaned their kids, who handed over their paychecks to their fluffy wives, who played tennis and cards with their fluffy friends, and are appalled, so they rebel. They go their own way and spend their money on themselves. Western men are going the same way, but are called MGTOWs, men going their own way. But MGTOWs are politically and ideologically passive, as distinct from the masculists, who are very political, ideological, media-conscious, angry, and in your face. Masculists are forcing women to become FIPs and pull their weight financially, or they don't get a man. This masculist force is scaring women shitless and making them learn to be nice to men again. As the supply of robot males continues to dry out, fluffies and fluffy feminists are competing harder and harder to find such men whom they can parasite upon, forcing many women to become FIPs or remain poor if earlier in their lives they did not shift their ass to become career competent. Masculist ideologizing creates a strong moral pressure on women to be FIPs. Young fluffies are increasingly shunned and spat at by young men who will not look twice at a young fluffy. If a young woman gets a reputation of being a fluffy amongst her social circle, that's the kiss of death for her in terms of getting a man. Fluffies are being wiped out by the masculist-influenced young men. The number one aim of the Masculists is to wipe out fluffies, because so many of men's problems stem from the continued existence of fluffies. However, the first category of female that the Masculists reject is the misandrist, male-dumping feminist. They too will continue to rot on the shelf. Men are not masochists. They want to be liked, and the male-dumping feminazi is utterly repulsive to men, as are fat feminists. Fat women are fat unfuckables to Masculists and to most men in general. In short, Masculism has the power to transform society, the way feminism did in the 70s. We force fluffies to become FIPs, or they rot on the shelf. We force women to be nice to us, or they rot on the shelf. We force the divorce courts to become men fair, or they, divorced women, rot on the shelf. The 2010s is the decade of male rebellion. By 2020, society will have had its masculist consciousness raised, and that new consciousness will translate into political and cultural changes as extensive as those caused by feminism. At the end of the day, if women and the fluffy feminist-dominated government do not change their tune towards men, then Masculists will destroy society by causing the birth rate to plummet so much that society dies out. Look at today's Japan. Jap politicians are pulling their hair out, trying to figure out what went wrong and why the Jap birth rate is dropping so catastrophically. Cheers. Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. Email profhugodegaris@yahoo.com. Website profhugodegaris.wordpress.com. YouTube channel name, De Garis, Masculist, MGTOW, Flyers. Ciao.